Alright. What's good, y'all? Solo here, and welcome back to my story mode. We are officially in December, which means that 2025 is right around the corner. Of course, you, I, and pretty much every single other Pokemon fan on this planet has been impatiently waiting for some kind of drip-fed news in regards to Pokemon Legends ZA. It's been a very long and quiet wait, and even after the massive leaks that happened up at Pokemon Company, it seems like we barely even got any form of real information on that game. So considering the fact that this year was pretty much essentially an empty void, surely they have something to show for themselves. Now, I've seen scattered comments and discussions here and there about a potential hidden game that's going to be coming out near the end of 2025. Of course, initially I thought, no shot in heaven they have two major games lined up both in 2025, especially after something like Legends EA. No shot. But then, the more that I thought about it, the more things started to make sense if that actually was the case. It's been very heavily speculated and, I guess for lack of a better way to put this, very heavily implied by the leaks that Pokemon Legends ZA is very likely to release early to mid 2025, which leaves a very wide open space for that holiday season. And y'all know Pokemon, if they have the chance to take advantage of a holiday season, they're gonna do it. Pretty much every mainline Pokemon game for the last couple of years have released during a holiday season, or at the very least, very close to one. Also, one thing that we desperately need to keep in mind is simply the fact that we have a completely brand new console from Nintendo on the way, most likely to be handed to us at some point next year. It's likely no mystery to pretty much any of us that they likely got the kit for this new console and have been developing for Pokemon Legends EA on that. However, what we also need to keep in mind is that they have multiple teams. And of course, not only that, but they are absolutely no stranger to handing out their IPs to very specific developers for spin-off games. So now, considering all of that, it seems unlikely that there isn't a game set up for us at the end of 2025. And so, naturally, of course, a couple of you that have been following me for the last couple of years know that I kind of like to do this end of the year, what are we getting next type list. In this particular case, I've compiled a list from least likely to most likely of what possible game we could potentially receive by the end of 2025, alongside Pokemon Legends ZA. And so, you guys already know the drill by now. Why don't you go ahead, sit down, grab yourself a little bit of a snack, maybe a bucket of marshmallows that you can dip into your cherry Sprite, and let's go ahead and talk about the potential of a game that's going to be joining Pokemon Legends ZA in 2025. So, to go ahead and kick this list off, why don't we start with the mainline titles first? Starting from the bottom of my list, we have Generation 10. Hell no. While technically speaking, yes, it has been a good full 2 years since we did receive Generation 9, it's only been 2 years since we've received Generation 9. No way in hell we move on to Gen 10 this early. This seems like the perfect announcement for the 30th anniversary of Pokemon, not the 28th that we're on right now? So yeah, I think it's more than safe to go ahead and just simply expect another solid 2 or 3 years of Generation 9 at the very least. Maybe not 3 years, I think 2 years maximum before we get Generation 10 on the new console. After that, we can go ahead and look to the Generation 5 remakes, which seems a little on the unlikely side, but weirdly enough, not impossible. As ridiculous as it may sound, I don't think it's all that insane to believe the possibility of Gen 5 remakes coming to us at the ass end of 2025. The thing is, for the most part, I have completely given up on trying to find any semblance of a pattern when it comes to Pokemon releases after Generation 8. After throwing DLCs into the mix, we never know what's gonna come after that, so I've pretty much given up on that. However, the one and only consistent pattern that we have had with the remakes specifically is that they always show up on a new console. The Gen 1 remakes in Generation 3 were on Game Boy. The Gen 2 remakes in Generation 4 were on DS, and the Generation 3 remakes in Generation 6 were on 3DS. And naturally, as we are all fully aware, BDSP was on Switch. At this point in time, as far as I'm aware, that's like the only consistent pattern with Pokemon. Now trust me, on one hand I do think it's a little insane to think that we could even potentially get the remakes only a couple of years after the Gen 4 remakes, However, we now need to keep in mind that they are not against having other companies work on the remakes. They literally had Ilka do BDSP, who's to say that they won't do it again for Generation 5's remakes? And again, to clarify, I don't think that Ilka is like the best set of developers or anything like that, but I don't think that they're the worst either. They did what they could with the time allotted, on top of what was most likely Game Freak and Pokemon Company breathing down their necks to have these games done a certain way. Given the backlash and complaints from what happened with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I'm sure that they're a little more cautious about how they're going about developing the Gen 5 remakes, but I can't put it past me to believe that they wouldn't just use Ilka again to have another game developed while they were working on the next mainline project, ergo Pokemon Legends CA. So to reiterate, unlikely, but not exactly impossible. Moving on from that, we have something in a very similar lane as the Gen 5 remakes, and that would be Let's Go Johto. I feel the exact same way that I do about the Gen 5 remakes that I do with Let's Go Johto, in which I don't think that it's likely, but I don't think that it's completely impossible either. Initially, I was thinking to myself that making another Let's Go game would be absolutely and completely pointless. The only reason that Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee even existed to begin with was to capitalize on all of the fans that they had amassed during the renaissance of Pokemon Go. They did that. That game did its job, and Pokemon Go is simply not moving like it was back in 2016 or 2017. So, based on that logic, why would they ever make a Pokemon Let's Go game again? The only logical reason that I could see behind them designing that game is to give us an actual Gen 2 remake available on modern consoles, and that is it. As of next year, it will have been 15 years since Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. That is a long time, dude. So yeah, a modern legal way for us to revisit Johto again, and an excuse for them to give us more accessories so that we could get those little Pokeball controllers. This time maybe it contains Celebi. A legal way to get Celebi? Oh my goodness, that's easy money. But either way, long story short, I don't think this is what it's gonna be, but I don't think that it's impossible to be this. Just extremely, extremely unlikely. So moving along here, lastly what I have in terms of mainline stuff is what I do believe we could potentially be getting next year as far as a mainline game goes, and that is something related to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It makes so much more sense to me to reutilize the assets presented in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet so that they could build something off of that so that we could have that ready by the end of next year. That would take up a lot less time and resources as opposed to building a completely brand new engine to build on, because that's probably what they're going to do for Generation 10. They don't really need to do that for Generation 9 anymore. The primary reason that I believe this is because in a video recently I talked about a leak that showed up about one of the hackers finding something of a source code that allegedly had something to do with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but did not want to reveal what that source code led to for whatever reason. I said that I personally believe they didn't want to disclose what was within that source code because it had something to do with not Pokemon, but Nintendo, specifically regarding the Switch successor. Me personally, I'm not trying to have a 1v1000 against the Nintendo ninjas. That is not a fate I would wish on my worst enemy. However, of course, that led me to believe that that source code for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has something to do with the Switch successor. The only reason they would have something like that is if they're building something for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet for the Switch successor. What that is, I don't know, but whatever the hell it is could actually end up being our holiday holdover, whether it's a sequel, whether it's a remaster of some kind, or maybe some third version, Pokemon Magenta potentially, I really don't know. Whatever the case may be, clearly I do feel like they have something more to do with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and that we're not exactly done with it yet, but I don't know, I could be completely wrong on that. Maybe my guess is super off, and you know what? For the sake of everybody's sanity, hopefully it is. But that is very much a play it by ear situation, so that is precisely what we're gonna go ahead and do. So that just about does it for the mainline stuff. Now we get into spin-off territory. But Soul, you must be absolutely insane. Why in the world do you think they would actually make any real spin-off games after the success of all of their mobile titles? Oh, there's actually a very simple answer for that, Chief, and it's because I am completely delusional. I don't think it's all that insane for me to believe that maybe, just maybe, there is a sliver of hope that they are actively making other spin-off games and actual spin-off titles that aren't mobile games, for Christ's sakes. Surely by now they must be getting tired and running out of content for Pokemon Masters EX and Pokemon Cafe remakes, for hell's sake. But anyway, same as the mainline titles, I'm going from least likely to most likely what could potentially be showing up at the end of next year. Now, one thing I'm not going to be delusional about is Pokepark. As in love with that series as I am not holding out any form of hope that we will ever see another Pokepark game. It has been 3 generations and 2 full generations of consoles since we have seen Pokepark. I am not holding my breath anymore. And just so we're clear, the only reason that I even bring this up is to acknowledge how upset I am that Pokepark is not back. Oh, and just so we're clear, if I don't bring up a specific set of spin-offs on this list, it's only because I think they have no chance, and specifically less chance than Pokepark to come back. Okay, now that that's established, now we move on to Pokemon Snap. This is another one of the titles that sits directly in the middle of the fence of not likely, but also not impossible. To my knowledge and understanding, Pokemon Snap sold as well as it could. It sold pretty okay, so there's no harm in believing that it could make another comeback. At the very least, I could definitely see some kind of DLC for new Pokemon Snap, because it is kind of weird that that game didn't get like a lot of updates and things like that, or at least not to my knowledge. I didn't play the game. If you guys have, maybe you can inform me on that, but as far as I'm aware, it probably could have used a little bit more general content, right? So I don't know, maybe we won't get a new game. That just seems super unlikely, but I could definitely see a situation in which they finally up the ante and give like a ton of new content for new Pokemon Snap. That is something I could see. And who knows, maybe after they drop that DLC, maybe I'll actually play the game. I can't make promises though. Moving on from that, now we get into the big meat, starting with Pokken Tournament. You guys already good and well know how I feel about this game. I have been waiting outside the ring for quite some time, waiting for round 2. Unfortunately though, if I'm being completely honest, it does seem on the unlikely side that we'll get another Pokken Tournament. Now, the only real reason that I don't believe that another Pokken Tournament could be in the cards is because Bandai is kind of going through it right now. Or at the very least, they kind of were the last time I checked on them. I'm not going to get into the whole thing about Bandai having a complete monopoly on anime-based games, which in of itself is still very much a problem despite how those games come out, whether they're good or not. But we all witnessed the major juxtaposition between games such as Jujutsu Kaisen Curse Clash and the success of a game like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And I have to imagine it's because of that that they really found themselves in a position where they're like, okay, we need to start cleaning up the filth around here a little bit. So we heard that they were kind of going through a lot of different changes. I think they were doing something as far as like, you know, laying off staff in a specific way. Maybe that wasn't Bandai, I don't know. But I did hear about them canceling a lot of projects, even a couple of major like commissions from other companies. Now, of course, this is Bandai that we're talking about. They get commissions from all over Timbuktu to make very specific games. So that doesn't necessarily mean that if Pokken Tournament was something that was commissioned by Pokemon, that was the thing that got canceled. However, it would be foolish to not consider the possibility that if it was a Pokken Tournament game that was considered in the works, that they would actually try to just prioritize their own works in terms of like anime titles and things of the such. I guess all I'm trying to say here is that they have a lot of different things that I feel like they're trying to prioritize right now, and Pokken Tournament certainly would not be one of those things. As much as I would love to see them go crazy on a Pokken Tournament too, I don't know. It's really hard to say, but again, I feel like they've got their own thing going on and their hands are kind of full, so I'm not going to hold out hope for a Pokken Tournament too. But I'm not going to sit here and say that it's impossible either. The next title that we have to consider is actually Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. This is actually one of the games that I feel pretty confident could potentially get something by the end of next year. As of March, it will have been 5 years since Mystery Dungeon DX. To my understanding, that's yet another title that sold pretty decently well. I don't see them not paying attention to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon anymore, especially when Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky is one of the most requested remakes ever. I feel like if there is any bombshell to drop at the end of that next Pokemon Presents and in February, it would be the fact that the long-awaited, heavily requested Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Sky is dropping in December of 2025. That tracks to me, and if there is any spin-off that would do phenomenally well during the holiday season, it would be Mystery Dungeon. It just makes a lot of sense to me. Now, one thing that may or may not affect things going forward is the fact that the developers of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX is Spike Chunsoft. Right now, from what we've heard, PlayStation is somewhat in talks to purchase Kadokawa, which is essentially, to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the parent company of Spike Chunsoft. So, if that purchase were to go through, I don't know how much that would affect Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. I mean, at this point in time, if there already was a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon game in development, they're gonna finish it and just be done with, I guess, Nintendo and Pokemon if they were to get purchased out by PlayStation. I really don't know the situation there. I hope that entire conversation falls out, by the way. Don't want PlayStation purchasing Kadokawa. Don't really see that going very well in the long scheme of things, but long story short, whatever the case may be, hopefully a new Mystery Dungeon is in the works, and if we could see it by the end of 2025, maybe early 2026, that would be absolutely glorious. Now this one, you guys are going to think I am completely insane, completely derived, and just, I need to be put in an asylum somewhere. And I get it, I completely understand, but I fully believe with all my heart that in some way, some shape, some form, Pokemon Ranger is gonna make a comeback. Now, saying that it could come out in 2025 might be pushing it. However, again, the reason that I believe that Pokemon Ranger could work is because once we get this new console, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that somehow, some way, some shape, some form, because NSO is coming back, we already know that to the Switch successor, we are going to get DS games playable on NSO. And the only way for them to do that is if they designed this new console with some kind of mechanics to allow us to play DS games in mind. And for them to do that, that would make it possible for something like Pokemon Ranger to work on Switch 2 or Switch successor, whatever it ends up being. What better game to show off flashy mechanics and tech for a new console than Pokemon Ranger, something that's so incredibly demanding, made easy to play on a new console. I feel like that's something that would definitely intrigue the masses. I don't know, I see it. I see a future where we get DS games available on NSO, and then we progress and continuously get all of these different ports for other games, and eventually we do have that mechanic usable for newer games so that we can get a new Pokemon Ranger. I completely understand if you want to see me wrapped up in a straitjacket, but my goodness, it's possible, man. It is possible. Okay, that's enough ravings from a madman. My last potential spin-off game that I could easily see coming to Switch is a brand new concept entirely. I mean, why not, right? I could easily see them doing something crazy and brand new, like a Warriors game. I feel like that would stick out way more than any of the prior entries that I mentioned just a moment ago. And also, if we're being completely real, something like a Warriors game would be the perfect style of game to show off the capabilities of a new console. A game where hundreds of different enemies appear on the screen and you are using really flashy moves to take all of them out. Something like that playing on screen and not dropping in frame rate in any way, shape, or form would definitely be a selling point for a lot of people in terms of hardware. Not to say that it's gonna be a Warriors game for certain in my mind, but hey, you know what? If we're gonna sit here and wish and dream and think about it, I'm gonna hope for what I wanna see, and I wanna see a Warriors game. But for the most part, I think that's just about everything I wanted to say in regards to this specific topic. Now, I know I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, but this was all solely for the sake of conversation. I could be completely wrong about any and everything that I talked about here. It's all just complete speculation and nothing more than that. Naturally, of course, a lot of the stuff on this list is things that I would love to see from Pokemon, but I'm not gonna sit here and get my hopes up when the reality is, we have no idea if Pokemon Legends ZA is actually the only thing we're getting next year or not. So I'm just gonna wait and see like everybody else, because that's kind of all we can do. I'm just putting it out there that it's not insane to believe that come this February, they might really knock us off our feet again. But hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. Alright, so that just about does it for this one. I think I'm gonna start plugging stuff now, right? Maybe I should do this in the middle of the video. next time. I don't know. But long and short, follow me on Blue.Sky. We're going to be doing a lot more, conversating on there and things like that. And you guys are going to get more consistent updates from me on what's going to be happening this month, next month, and, for the foreseeable future, because Twitter is a cesspool and I don't use it as much as I should. Make sure to join the Discord so that you can keep up to date on literally everything that I'm up to, everything that I've posted in regards to any of my channels and things like that. And lastly, of course, I have, as of yesterday, at the time of this being posted, this means that yesterday, which is today for me, wow, that's confusing, I started posting shorts. I'm going to be posting more shorts throughout the month just to see how that little project goes. I've been having a lot of fun making little individual shorts for you guys, just so that you guys have something in between, in amongst the week, while I'm working on other videos and things like that, because these videos take a little bit of time to edit, man, but I'm going to be going crazy in the booth this month, so believe in your boy. But other than that, I think that's enough shameless plugging. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to you guys, and I want you guys to tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Do you think that any of these things could be something that is announced in the next upcoming Pokemon Presents for the end of February, or for the end of 2025 rather, and that we could be getting another secondary secret game at the end of the year? Or do you think that I and anybody else that's speculating this is absolutely out of their minds? We're not getting anything else other than Legends EA, and they're going to continue cooking in silence until they are ready. Tell us everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, yes sir, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I am gone, so thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.